Remember Free Guy, that Ryan Reynolds movie? Remember that final fight in that movie? Let's just say the writers for Secret Invasion took some inspiration from that. This is the Review of Champions, and I'm your host, Grandmaster. With me is a powerful panel made up of the finest champions Sakar has to offer. Let me introduce them to you. Merv, how are you, man?
Good, how are you?
I'm great. We have Mr. Taylor first. How are you?
Good.
And voice only, we have Lokismom. How are you, man?
I'm doing really well. And Lady Death Lady, she has on her Barbie pink.
Good. Because we're lacking Lord Deathman, but let's get through it anyway. Today we're going to talk about episode 6, the series finale of Secret Invasion called Home. But before we do, I want to ask you to help us out. Like and share this video and subscribe to our channel. And if you really can't get enough of us, you can join our ranks. Go to Sakar at sakar.freeforms.net. Set up an account, get to know us, and yes, you can join us in our reviews or podcasts. We would love to have you on the show. Consider this your final warning. After this, the spoilers are incoming. So if you haven't seen this week's episode, go do that first and then check out our review. So, that final showdown, predictable, boring. But let me not be the reviewer here. I will leave that to our panel, our great champions. Let's get started. Lokismom, can I have your quick thoughts on the season finale of Secret Invasion?
Well, it wasn't any worse than the last 3 episodes. I'll say that. Otherwise, like you say, we're just waiting to get it over with. Too much exhibition. It was just talking and pointing, and this happened, and you should have. And and then I think you pointed out the what was the move? The
Free Guy.
I'm sorry.
Free Guy.
Okay, yeah, it was a similar setup to another. Anyway, at least it was kind of interesting to see that. I mean, I sort of did like how they did the. I think I'm going a little too in depth here, but I'll come back to that. Anyway,
yeah.
One of my quick thoughts.
Okay, Taylor.
My impression is not good of this episode. But before we get into any details, let me give you a quick reenactment of the climactic final battle. This is Gravik. This is Gaia. That was the entire climax of this $212 million series that they put together for us. When we get into the deep dive, I'm not even sure where to begin with the issues.
I will give you some time to think about that. Then I'll go to Merv for his quick impression first. Merv.
Yeah, I mean, as far as this finale goes, I honestly didn't mind it all that much. it was, I mean, it wasn't good, but it was okay. And I guess that's where, the pitfalls of this series really are, is just like, I watched it and some stuff happened and it's over.
Okay, I'm gonna challenge you now, because we're talking about Secret Invasion, one of Marvel Comics' biggest events, and your comment on the big finale for the series is, it was okay.
Yeah.
Does that not say it all?
Well, so I mean, without getting too far into in depth, I view the movies as up here and like the shows down here, and they've yet to prove me wrong on that. So the second I found out Secret Invasion was going to be a show instead of a movie, I lowered my expectations. And then after the first episode or two, well, after like the third episode, I really started lowering my expectations. And maybe that's why I'm like, it was okay, because my expectations were in the gutter after episode 5. So like it only had like to resolve some issues for me to be like, it's okay, but I'm not saying it's good. I'm not, but I'm not, I didn't hate watching it. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah. I thought it was absolute trash. Just leave it at that. I didn't come up, by the way, with the comparison between the final fight of Gaia and Gravik with Free Guy, but when I saw that comment, I couldn't unsee it actually. And yeah, y'all know how I like Ryan Reynolds movies. Well, Free Guy wasn't the best Ryan Reynolds movie. Let's just put it like that. So yeah, Marvel is really fallen from its pedestal in my book, and I'm not tapping out just yet. But they really need to pick up their game and really do it fast. Let's hope for the Marvels, people. But anyway, well, I hope Taylor is ready for his deep dive.
Well, at least the final battle in Free Guy was fun. This wasn't even fun. I actually kind of like Free Guy. It's a good movie. Well, where to begin? Let's start with Gravik and his master plan, shall we?
Yeah, sure.
I thought it was weird from the beginning that he wanted to start a nuclear war. I understand that Skrulls are immune to radiation, but what about the 1,000,000 degrees temperatures from the nuclear explosions going off all around them? And what would the world be like that they were going to now live in after the nuclear holocaust? That didn't make any sense, but okay. All right, I got it. He's trying to wipe out humanity. That's the only way to do it quickly. Comic book, okay. But as it evolved into this episode, his plan evolved into Scrody, tricking the president into dropping a nuclear bomb on the spot where Gravik was standing. The nuclear power plant, which was the Skrull headquarters, which is where he was while the president was ordering the bombing of that spot.
Yeah. Yeah,
Really?
he wanted to kill all those people he kidnapped, I guess.
All those. Well, first of all, why didn't the radiation kill all those people a long time ago? If they
Convenience.
Exactly. Sorry, Nick Fury was practically dead before he even got inside the building with all the coughing and stuff. And I knew it wasn't Nick Fury. I figured it was Gaia. So for 1 second, when he first blocked the punch and then hit Gravik the first time and sent him flying, for 1 second, I thought maybe it was Bruce Banner in one of those masks that Fury had, and it was going to be the Hulk. But that only flashed across my mind for a second because I had figured it was Gaia from the beginning. Which brings me again to how stupid Gravik is. If there's anyone in the world who would make sure that the person he was talking to isn't a Skrull, he would think it would be Gravik, right? He knows about Skrulls. He also knows that a whole bunch of Skrulls just tried to kill him in the previous episode, and he killed them. But no, didn't bother testing and checking to make sure that was Fury. Now, speaking of Fury, this bottle has the DNA of every superhero and superpowered being in the known universe. Unless you were planning on making a Super Skrull, why would they all be in one bottle? Does it make any sense at all? First of all, that's not how DNA works, but I understand it's a comic book. I can go along with that if they make it fun, but that doesn't make any sense. And then you plug it into the computer, and not only does it identify the species, it identifies the names of the DNA. Winter Soldier. I didn't know Winter Soldier was DNA, but it is. Then they get into their big fight. Cole Obsidian's arm comes out at one point with his rings on. So apparently his rings are DNA. Are DNA built into his molecules or whatever the heck it is. His jewelry is part of his species. And then, they have the fight. He's healing from all wounds until he suddenly stops healing from wounds. And that one big hole kills him and he's dead. Never be heard from again. Then, in the hospital, meanwhile, back at the ranch, first of all, there has just been an attack on the president's convoy, including attack helicopters. And the only security in that hospital are a dozen guys in suits with pistols. Okay. Let me give just a quick real-world example. when 2 kids set off a bomb at the Boston Marathon, within hours, there were guys in body armor, Kevlar helmets, and rifles all over the streets of Boston. But yet you didn't have anybody but 12 Secret Service agents with pistols protecting the president after he had been attacked by attack helicopters.
Yeah, and they were all taken out by 2 relatively older
Yes.
spies who have desk jobs, by the way.
Yeah, they have desk jobs. They just shot darts into all of them. None of them even got a shot off. And then we've got Scrody. Mr. President, he's a Skrull. Yes, he's a Skrull. He's a Skrull. If only there was some way we could prove that he was a Skrull sooner. Maybe the way that Mary Poppins had already done it twice in this series. Cut his finger off. Shoot him in the leg. Whatever. And then, by the way, I only noticed this on the second time, so I probably shouldn't be too much about this. She had her gun, and she took Rhodey's gun away from him. She had one gun pointed at his head, and the other gun was pointed at his lower back. That was shown in a scene. Then he turns around and takes this gun away. What happened to this gun? Nothing. It disappeared. And then Fury shot him. Okay, fine, got it. 5 minutes later, the president is on the air saying we're going to kill all alien species. Like, what? Even though he knew a Skrull had saved his life, how they knew? It was on the news. There was film of it on the news. By the way, I didn't see any film news crews at the attack on the president's motorcade, but somehow they had pristine video of him being saved by Talos on the news. So he knew a Skrull had saved his life. He didn't even ask, Fury, what should we do about the Skrulls? No, he just goes on news and says, yeah, we're declaring war on all. First, he said alien species, which doesn't make any sense. There's a New Asgard is a tourist attraction full of aliens, not just Asgardians either. There's weird looking aliens there too, as we have seen before. So I don't know if we're going to attack them.
Guys made of rocks, and some have scissors for hands. But
yes, those guys are all there.
Yeah.
And they can turn stuffed animals into weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah, also true. Yeah.
Yep.
And screaming goats, by the way. They also have those.
Yes, and screaming goats. Some people want the screaming goats killed. But and then, but the president makes that speech, and then there are these groups of fanatics waiting in wait somewhere. Suddenly just start murdering people in large numbers. Some Skrulls, some who used to be Skrulls. And it goes, and then Fury says, "Hey, you shouldn't have done that." President, well, I don't care. I'm going to do it anyway. Oh, okay, bye. I'm going back to Spain. Really tried to talk him out of it there. And where is everybody else? And by the way, when they were talking, when the president was deciding about launching the nuclear missiles at Russia, did anyone say, they're going to launch back, right? We've had this thing called mutually assured destruction for the last 70 years.
Yeah.
Not even mentioned.
Nope.
But then, and I see this happening a lot in recent MCU stuff. It's like, if you're a human, and you're not from Wakanda, and I guess maybe Pakistan, then you're an idiot, and you're stupid, and your first impulse is to steal and kill anything that's different or new or you haven't seen before. It's crazy. The whole thing was crazy. And now, of course, the last, the one thing the MCU needed, more loose ends floating out through its universe that God knows when we'll ever get to them. I guess in the Marvels, we're going to see part of this. Hopefully they'll wrap something up. Hopefully Gaia will either die because the powers are too much and poison her, or they find a way to take the powers away. Because right now it's just totally absurd that she has every power in the MCU all at once in her body.
Yeah, I think the debate of who's the strongest superhero in the MCU is now settled because she has every power, so she is the most powerful. Right,
and she can go and kill the president.
Yeah,
no, she has ghost power. She could do it invisibly. No one even know she was there. Yeah. Okay, and now Mary Poppins says, I'm going to give you the resources to fight this war, but you're going to help me. Well, help her do what? I don't know. They're setting up some more weird stuff. And then they go to the room with the hundreds of people in different kinds of brain machines, I guess. Who the heck were all those people? Yeah. And why are the Skrulls keeping all these people alive anyway, since their plan was to wipe out humanity? My guess on that, and they never said this, but I'll go ahead and I'll do the fan fan reasoning on it. I'm assuming that like if a Skrull is in that other person's body, in order to have their mind and their memories, the person has to be awake and alive and in the machine. I'll go with that. Okay, fine. But what? Gravik had a whole nother one with all these other machines in another location. I guess whatever, whatever. But all these loose ends. Yeah, even Mary Poppins. I shouldn't call her Mary Poppins, but she sounds like Mary Poppins. She's terrible too. Okay, because she's not from Wakanda and she's human and she's not Pakistani, but she goes around torturing and killing people with a smile on her face and laughs about it. That's kind of what she does. And Fury, what the heck? Oh, this was Fury's show. He didn't do anything.
He shot Scrody.
Arguably, he made it worse. He, and the whole. Oh, well, it's Fury's show, so hey, Mister, I got my writer's degree out of a box of Cracker Jacks and I'm in Hollywood now. Well, we've got to humanize him. We've got to give his personal life. No, you don't. Have him stop a Skrull invasion. That's what we're paying you for. Don't care. They could have not had his wife in the whole show at all, and it wouldn't have changed anything. Would have made it 2 episodes shorter.
Yeah,
could have made a movie.
I actually thought about that as well. I mean, what did the wife add to the whole show? Nothing.
One action scene.
Yeah, one action scene, but that also didn't add anything to the show.
Right. Could have just been Gaia, even if they wanted another action scene.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm rambling on. The show started fairly strong, I thought.
Yeah.
But, again, I don't know. Do the writers just run out of steam? Do they like work 24/7 until they fall asleep, and then just whatever comes out when their head hits the keyboard is the final episode?
Yeah, I don't know, but it was really terrible. I agree. Lokismom, you had a follow, but you can do your deep dive as well right away.
Well, yeah, that's really what I wanted to. I was wanting to just piggyback off what Taylor said, and I thought he's so spot on about it. I mean, about how it's so contrived and everything. And I think we've kind of gone over a lot of this stuff already. The one thing I kept thinking about and looking at all these problems, well, how could I have rewritten this script? And as we found out, I think they loaded the whole point of the story was to give Gaia, Carol Danvers, and everybody else's powers. That was the whole point. They could have just done so much easier. I mean, one thing that didn't get, I think it was in that final scene where it's actually not, it's really Gaia as Nick Fury. But anyway, Gravik's just kind of going off town. Why he's, like, why in the world is he doing this? What we're trying to think. But I guess in Skrull society and their culture, and it was kind of touched on a couple places in the series, breaking your word, I guess, is the worst thing you can possibly do. So I think if they'd have just played into that more and made Gravik more of a nut, just a pure nut job, and then make the whole point, well, he's going to kidnap the president, and he's going to try to start it, and he's crazy. And the whole point would be to get to him and try to stop him, blah, 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 stop these Skrulls that have already infiltrated God knows where. And I mean, they could have really had the story right there and then done all the stuff with the Skrulls and the superpower shit and all that. Crap. Yeah, I mean, it's just ungodly what they did with it. It was an insult to Samuel Jackson's character, Nick Fury. Like I say, he wound up just kind of like, oh, I'm just tired and done with it. And there at the end, I was just tired of war and yada, yada, yada. And it was like, so, we're in a comic book verse now. Fury, you have to be ready for the next battle. Anyway, I totally agree. I think it was just so sad that they did all this. And I made a suggestion over on Sarkar that I wish somebody would take this, whatever they got footage and stuff on the floor and whatever they can maybe patch in between and just cut it down to like maybe a 2-hour movie and just scrap this series. Just whatever, make it okay, here we got the Skrulls, here's Skrulls living on Earth. And that actually would have been a pretty good story to think about it. In the first part, if the humans had found out the Skrulls, and then they were running around and shooting Skrulls, and that would have, I think, made more sense. to the mayhem that they were creating here. But anyway, it's done with. Nothing we can do now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that the idea has a lot of potential, but I think the execution was really not good. And I don't know why they approved this, because I think a lot of people were anticipating the show, and yeah, it didn't deliver at all. And they should have spotted that from the beginning. So I really don't get it, why they are contaminating their brand so much lately. But anyway, Murph.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to really bring up She-Hulk, but like the idea that an AI was generating like the story beats and just playing through the paint by numbers version of whatever somebody thinks a superhero in the MCU movie or TV show is going to be, like that's honestly what this show as a whole kind of felt like. Like we're just I episode 1 started off, I thought, with a good like beat on paranoia and subterfuge, and like really like leaned into the spy thriller feel, at least the first like couple minutes of it, I thought. And then it almost immediately just turned into just a generic, at every turn, every turn, I think initially I was waiting for them to surprise me, and just everything became, I mean, Grandmaster, you called the finale 4 episodes ago. You said it's going to be Gaia versus thing. Everybody knows that. Let's just fast forward to the end at this point. So I just think, like, I don't know why they went so predictable in so many bad ways. Like, I mean, you can be predictable and still tell a good story where you tie up your loose ends and like don't leave obvious contrivances, or there's just so many issues with like the writing in this series that I don't know where to even like, how do you almost just scratch everything and start over at that point, because it's just so bad. But I will say, as far as the finale goes, on a surface level, kind of almost turning my brain off to all the plot holes and contrivances. I enjoyed Nick Fury entering the compound, using the car as a decoy, taking out, well, Nick Fury. I'll just do that for a while. I actually really liked his conversation with Gravik, where especially Gravik's part, because I thought Gravik made a lot of good points. And I'm like, am I supposed to be rooting against this guy? Because he's basically just letting it all hang out because he thinks he's talking to Fury, and he's so frustrated with Fury's lack of resolve to support Gravik's 30-year movement, or whatever you want to call it. Like, he's been trying to find a home for 30 years. Like, he doesn't have a place right now. He's just being used by Nick Fury at this point, and he feels used, and he's just letting that all out. And I thought the actor did a really good job, and I thought that scene was really good. And then they kind of deflated it a little bit by revealing that it was Gaia. And it's like, well, they didn't even have a moment then, Gravik and Nick Fury. Like, he got all this off his chest and he was talking to the wrong person. So that just kind of like undercuts like a lot of the stuff that you just see. So I like the scene. And then like almost immediately, once I start thinking about it, I'm like, well, it kind of deflated everything.
Wouldn't the show be much better if we had seen more of Fury and Gravik's history together?
Yes.
And wouldn't that have added a lot more tension to that build-up? And that would have made so much more sense. Now we get one scene in episode 2, I think the opening scene, Gravik as a child and Fury, and then he makes the promise, and then they don't have any scene together except for a phone call in episode 5.
I actually thought, like, back in episode 2 or whatever, that whenever Vara, who becomes Fury's wife, it's revealed like in the 2nd or 3rd episode, I thought maybe that the flashbacks were going to focus on like did they adopt Gravik, since Gravik doesn't have any parents? Is Nick Fury's home life basically Vara and a kid or teen Gravik for a while, and maybe that adds like a father-son dynamic kind of in an adopted way that they'd explore. And it's like, nope, that none of that stuff. We're just seeing like random him eating in restaurants, and you see a little bit more of his like love life, I guess. But without Gravik in the picture, it's like, well, this is just another storyline that doesn't really affect anything else. Like, it's its own singular storyline that doesn't really branch out into helping any of the other storylines get resolved. And it's annoying in that aspect.
Because actually, what did change for the Skrulls? They now are getting hunted, but they still don't have a home. They have any development. They lost 2 leaders. Uh, and they gain the Super Skrull, who is already working with the humans.
Yeah.
So what did and like her father did. So basically, what has changed? What development has been achieved for the Skrulls during this so-called secret invasion?
Nothing other than making themselves like America's public enemy number one, I guess. I don't know if the president's speech kind of is the whole Earth against aliens, or is it just America? I can't really tell.
As a non-American, trust me, when the American president's speeches, the rest of the world goes like, nah, and
I
then
figured
move on.
as much. And especially the way he said it, like the Taylor already mentioned, like whenever you basically he's as an American, like basically pitting America against the entire universe, which at this point in this world we know is a lot. Like they've already seen a lot of this. So basically, you just want to make America a target for everyone. Like, what are you doing?
I respect America's military power. I think, but I think they're a little bit out of their league at this point.
I think they would struggle with Wakanda alone, let alone like
the
hey, let's start a fight with the Kree and the Guardians of the Galaxy and whomever else like I just didn't know why it was. I've heard this mentioned, but why it was worded that way? Like you could easily just target the Skrulls with this. You don't have to word it like every offborn species. It's like, well, you have several thousand of those on your planet, and you know this. Like, okay, so you're just setting yourself up to get assassinated. You know what I mean? Like you're just going to be gone. But on the surface level, coming back to
Thor. That means Thor has to live.
Exactly. That means all of new Asgard and stuff like that. And it's just like that means half of the people who saved the planet in Endgame, half of the people on that battlefield, easily half, probably more than that, are now public enemy number one for America. And it's like, as an American, I don't want to be part of that. You know what I mean? But yeah, on a surface level, I enjoyed the hospital stuff. But again, it kind of annoyed me that they were swapping Furies around because it deflates a lot of the conversations. I didn't really understand even why Scrody jumped towards trying to like kill Fury or Sonya or whoever he was going to plan on shooting. Like I didn't know what his whole game plan there was to wait. He wanted to wait one more minute. Why was he in a rush to do anything? He should have just been stalling. Like, no, President, I don't know. Like it didn't make any sense to me that he would like jump at a gun at that point to try to prevent anything, because all that did was get him shot in the head, and it's whatever. And then I felt like they rushed the ending and like the I guess epilogue or whatever you want to call it, like all the quick scenes of
basically post-credit scenes at the end of the show.
Yeah, it was just like, and again, like Taylor said, like there's all these loose. So what does this mean? This almost should have been an episode 1 where it creates this paranoia for the rest of the season. Now it's like the more interesting stuff is about to happen, and we already had the 6 episodes. So, I don't know. In the big CGI fight sequence, I didn't mind. I wasn't like jumping out of my seat to see all these random things, and I thought especially the Drax arm looked really bad, but none of the other ones really bothered me all that much, and it felt like okay, and we're done, and the hero wins. Great.
Yeah, the how Gaia won the fight was exactly how Iron Man in Iron Man 3 beat that bald guy in Air Force One. By making a hole in his tummy, basically. Yeah. But anyway, it was lame. Sorry, it was lame.
I'm not saying
like Lord Deathman said on the board, what up with all those big arms? But anyway, Taylor, you had a follow-up.
Yeah, I mean, I can almost understand declaring the Skrulls an enemy, because I mean, yeah, they try to kill the president, they kidnap the Prime Minister of England, they kidnap the Secretary General of NATO. An attack on one country in NATO is an attack on all countries in NATO. And you could say, well, there were good Skrulls. Well, there were good Germans in World War II, I'm sure, too. But their council went along with Gravik. They voted him general and said, yeah, okay, go ahead, kill all the human beings on Earth. So the Skrulls, in my book, based on my reading of it, have a lot to answer for after this. But the other problem is, well, another thing with Gravik and his speech, which was really well acted, his scene at the end. But yeah, you made me kill this man who has a family. It makes me so mad. I'm going to kill every human being and all of their families on Earth. A little bit of disconnect, it felt like there. And they never really did give a good answer of why they didn't find a home for the Skrulls. How about that planet Thanos was living on after he retired there?
I was exactly going there.
Cut his head off, beautiful orchards and everything growing there. and I guess Scrody, that was Scrody who was there, who saw that beautiful planet. And that's the other thing about.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. But the whole thing with Rhodey, there's already, as I mentioned on the board, there's already people online going through all of the scenes from Infinity War and Endgame saying if he was a Skrull in this scene, he never would have said this or never would have done that. He never would. It doesn't make any sense. Which is something, if you remember in our very review of the first episode, I didn't do the second episode, I said this is always my problem with shapeshifter stories, is because they always work so hard to fool you. That they make the person act like they wouldn't act if they were actually, and then the big reveal, oh, they were actually a shapeshifter. Well, wait a minute, and you can always go back and say, no, a shapeshifter wouldn't have done all this other stuff.
Okay, I'm gonna put something on you now, Taylor, because I know you don't like Star Trek Discovery, but they did that properly in Star Trek Discovery Season 1. They did that reveal with Lorca, and they did that right. I mean, and Secret Invasion and Endgame and Infinity War doesn't even come close to this when it comes to Scrody. I mean, but
yeah, you're right. They did do that with that one character. They did do that well. Fortunately, they did almost everything else in that season.
Yeah, okay, that's
wrong,
a discussion between us,
well.
which I do not agree with you. But
and other people have done it well.
Yeah.
I mean, even Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. with the life model decoys or life decoy models, whatever they call it, LMDs. That whole storyline was great. That was a whole great season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
But but they had probably 22 episodes in that season, whereas this they had 6 episodes and
and better writers.
Yeah, exactly. I really think that's it. And I don't know where they're getting these writers. I don't know if they've MCU has decided, we're so successful, we're going to give back and give all these new young writers a chance, but you got to find some professionals who know what they're doing, or at least do some quality control on them.
Yeah,
I just want to add what y'all were talking about, the perfect scenario. Now, if the Skrulls love radiation and can resist it, or it feeds them, there's a whole town in Ukraine called Pripyat, where they can just go in. I mean, it's already there. All they have to do is just, rebuild it and make it really nice, and then they can take care of the aquarium that's still melting down to China. They can just walk in there and just, get right next to it.
Yeah.
But they couldn't think of that anyway.
What bothered me was no, never mind. I'm not going to go into that. It's too political. Merv, you had a follow-up.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, I saw a clip. I saw it before, but there's a clip of the creators of South Park doing a guest appearance at a class at NYU for writing. And they mentioned that whenever they're planning, I know it's just South Park, but this is coming from them. It sounds really on point. But it's whenever they're planning out their story beats and they're this happens, this happens, this happens. It's if you have and then between your story beats, it's shit and you should just scrap it. Basically he's saying if you have this story beat, you want to have either therefore or but after it. So it's this happens and therefore this happens, but this happens and that's a problem. And then therefore this happens. And I, yeah, ever since I saw that, when I watch stuff, especially if I notice that it feels written badly, I'm reminded of that. And this happens and then this happens. And it's well, this is garbage, And I just had that feeling through this entire series. And I just wanted to mention that as I don't know. I feel like somebody for this show would have been better off sitting through that guest speaker class and at least picking up a few pointers on how to write.
Yeah, well, I'm not right, but in a good story, events that follow each other needs to make sense because why they follow each other, and it's basically the same thing what you're saying. I mean, and there's just stuff happening that I mean, like Lord Deathman pointed out last week. We get in episode 3, Priscilla / Vara goes to the world's biggest bank where to get a gun, while 2 episodes later there are like 500 guns spread around the house. Why? It doesn't really make sense to go to a bank to get a gun to shoot at a wall eventually in the end, because she was never going to kill Fury. Oh, by the way, that's the only storyline that got resolved. Fury's love life. So we got that.
And that was one of the biggest questions of the MCU coming into this. So
yeah. My wife doesn't like to follow on a weekly basis. She likes to binge these kind of shows. So this afternoon or this morning, I was rewatching the finale to prepare for this review, and I told her, yeah, Fury is married now. It's not a minor spoiler, but you may find it interesting. And he's married to a Skrull, and she's like, what? And I think that killed all her buzz for this show. I say it's horribly bad, so you don't need to bother watching. You just need to know this person dies and oh yeah, Rhodey was a Skrull for a few movies. Okay, well that's it. That's basically why you watch Secret Invasion. But again, well, Taylor.
Yeah. Do any of you think that when they were making Infinity War and Endgame, they were planning on Rhodey being a Skrull all that time?
No.
Neither do I.
I don't even think Secret Invasion was really in the works at the time, or maybe there was an idea, but sorry, couldn't help it. But there was an idea, but they didn't. I don't think they even talked to Don Cheadle yet to appear on the show.
This is what they call you. Merv brought up the writing class analogy. This is what they call in writing class seat of the pants writing. You just do it, whatever comes up. I mean, you write that scene and then, okay, how is this scene going to work? And you do it like that, which if you're a novelist or somebody or working in a small venue, I mean, you could do that, but trying to spread it out like they've done with all these movies shows is ridiculous. I think it was pure luck that from Iron Man to Infinity War saga sort of wound up like it did. I think that was serendipitous. They're never going to recreate it.
No.
But and they're trying to do that, and that's the big mistake.
Yeah.
I think when they said we're going to do a Secret Invasion, they're like, okay, well, they probably got halfway into it and said, well, wait a minute, somebody has to get revealed as a Skrull. Well, who's it going to be? And they probably went through every character, said, can't be that person, can't be that person, can't be that person. Well, how about Rhodey? Okay, we'll make Rhodey the Skrull. Get Cheadle on the line.
Yeah, but anyway. Okay, well, I think we ripped this finale apart enough. Let's do a rating. We're going to rate out of 10, and I want to hear your number for the season finale and the show as a whole. And it doesn't need to be the same number, of course. Taylor.
The season finale, maybe like a 5.
Okay,
5.5.
You're being friendly.
Remember, I gave the She-Hulk series a 5, so that's pretty bad. Season as a whole, I'm gonna give it a 7.
Okay.
Because Dick Fury, Samuel L. Jackson's great. A lot of good acting, some decent action scenes. And remember, 7 is now the second lowest grade I've ever given anything in the MCU after She-Hulk. So it's not good. Everything being relative, that's not good.
Right. Sorry. threw in a little Dutch word there. I know. Merv.
I'll give this episode a 6, just because on its surface I didn't enjoy a lot of scenes until you start thinking about stuff, which is kind of the series as a whole. But as a series, I don't remember what I rated She-Hulk. I'm going to give this one a 5, but the only show that I would rate it better than is probably She-Hulk. And I'm not counting I Am Groot, because I watched like one episode of that and realized it was for toddlers. But yeah, the only MCU series, I sat down and thought about it, the only other series that I would rather not watch is She-Hulk, just because of the ending.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So 5 out of 10.
Okay. Lokismom.
Well, I'm gonna have to give this episode a 5, because it was the finale. It was supposed to at least, give us some oomph, and it didn't even do that. Well, I gave passing grades really right up, and except for this show, but we also failed the final exam, so I'm going to get the whole series a 5.
Okay. Fair enough. I'm going to give the season finale a 2 out of 10, just like episode 5. And the whole show, I'm going to give a 3 out of 10, because 1 point for Olivia Colman and 1 point extra for the strong start it had. But overall, I thought it was absolute trash. And I do believe She-Hulk is better, because at least that show knew it was written poorly and made fun of that in the finale, which I give it credit for. This show was terrible, just as terrible, but took itself seriously. And I think in my book, that's even worse. So Secret Invasion, to me, officially is the worst Marvel Studios has ever done in live action. I'm not counting both animated shows, which I dislike even more. But anyway, that's just the way I see it. And I'm allowed to see it that way. That will conclude this review of Champions for Home, Episode 6, the series finale of Secret Invasion. I hope you have enjoyed our discussion today. If you did, you can help us out by liking and sharing this review. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you really want more of us, there it is, Sakar.freeforms.net. Join us. We would love it. For now, I want to thank you all. Also on behalf of our champions, of course. And we wish you to be well and be safe. Bye.